Welcome to part 1 of our Most Corrupt series episode on Joseph Biden. For his entire political career, he has been a resident of Delaware, and after a very few years as an attorney, he has spent the last 5 decades in public office as a U.S. Senator, Vice President, and currently President. Biden has had a colorful, if not that remarkable, career. Who is Joe Biden? What does his life say about his character? What has he accomplished, if anything, during his political career?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, military veteran, historian, author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. was born on November 20th, 1942, and grew up for a short time in the city of Scranton, Pennsylvania. But the family moved to Delaware, and he never returned. He still likes to claim that he is a Scranton boy, although many of the locals do not claim him. His siblings are Valerie Biden Owens, James B. Jim Biden, and Francis William Biden. His father, Joseph Biden Sr., worked cleaning furnaces and later worked as a used car salesman. His mother was Catherine Eugenia Jean Finnegan. Biden attended St. Paul's Elementary School in Scranton, but in 1955 the family moved to Mayfield, Delaware when he was 13 years old. Biden struggled with a stutter as a child, and kids gave him the nicknames of Dash and Joe Impedimenta. After high school, Biden attended the University of Delaware, studied history, political science, and he claimed he played football. However, during a campaign stop in Athens, Ohio in October 2012, then Vice President Joe Biden said the last time he was in town, he was playing against the Ohio University football team in 1963, and that he almost got arrested for walking to a girl's dormitory. The fact is, he never played for his college football team, although his official biography still has that claim. But he did develop an interest in politics during these years, primarily by the election of John F. Kennedy in 1961. He met his first wife, Nylia Hunter, also a Syracuse University student, while on vacation in the Bahamas. After graduating from Delaware in 1965, he was accepted to Syracuse University Law School and married Hunter in 1966. Biden was a mediocre student at best, and did not have an impressive academic resume throughout college, and this substandard performance followed him into law school. During his first year in law school, he failed a course for failing to properly cite a reference to a law review article. After graduation from law school in 1968, where he barely survived, Biden moved to Wilmington, Delaware, to practice law as a public defender and was an active member of the Democratic Party. He was elected to the Newcastle County Council in 1970, where he served as councilman. Then Biden started his own law firm in 1971. Biden and his wife Nylia had 3 children: Joseph Bo, born in 1969, Robert Hunter, born in 1970, and Naomi Amy, born in 1971. In 1972, the Delaware Democratic Party encouraged Biden, then 29 years old, to run against the Republican incumbent J. Caleb Boggs for the United States Senate. Biden's campaign was managed by his family members, and his sister, Valerie Biden Owens, was his campaign manager. His brothers and both parents also campaigned for him. Biden won in an upset to become the 6th youngest U.S. Senator elected in American history. Just before Christmas in 1972, Biden's wife and 3 children were involved in a fatal car accident while shopping for a Christmas tree. His wife and daughter were killed, and sons Bo and Hunter were badly injured. To his credit, Biden did not attend the swearing-in ceremony for new senators in Washington, as he wanted to be near his 2 surviving sons and prepare for the services for his wife and daughter. Instead, he took the oath of office from his son's hospital room. This was when Biden decided to continue to live in Wilmington and commute to and from Washington each day using the Amtrak train, which he continued to do during his time in the Senate. After Congress failed to ratify the SALT II Treaty signed in 1979 by Soviet General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev and President Jimmy Carter, Biden met with Soviet Foreign Minister Andrei Gromyko. They addressed the concerns that Americans had, and Biden worked with Gromyko and secured changes that addressed the Senate Foreign Relations Committee's objections. Getting back to his relationship, according to Biden, he met teacher Jill Tracy Stevenson, née Jacobs, in 1975, supposedly on a blind date, according to their mutual story. However, it has surfaced that they were having an affair, as Jill was married to Delaware business owner Bill Stevenson at that time. Jill filed for divorce and wanted the house in the settlement, which was contested by Stevenson on the provable grounds of adultery. Stevenson stated that Joe's brother Francis Biden paid him a personal visit and threatened him after the divorce, which Stevenson won. Joe and Jill were married at the United Nations Chapel in New York on June 17, 1977. But according to Stevenson, who stated, Frankie Biden of the Biden crime family comes up to me and goes, "Give Jill the house or you're going to have serious problems." I looked at Frankie and I said, "Please, are you threatening me?" And needless to say, about 2 months later, my brother and I were indicted for that tax charge for $8,200. It should be noted that while Hunter Biden was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts for $2.2 million in unpaid taxes coming from entities by the Obama and Clinton-appointed members of the Internal Revenue Service and Department of Justice, Stevenson and his brother were charged with 2 felonies over $8,200 in unpaid taxes in a personal vendetta by Joe Biden. We will revisit Biden's use of federal agencies for personal gain later in Part 2, as it was apparent, even at that time, Biden was willing to use his federal office for a personal agenda against other people. In the mid-1970s, Biden was one of the Senate's strongest opponents of race integration busing. His Delaware constituents strongly opposed it, and such opposition nationwide later led his party to mostly abandon school integration policies. Biden admitted that he and Hillary Clinton had been mentored by West Virginia Senator and former Ku Klux Klan Kleagle, or recruiter, Robert C. Byrd, who filibustered against both the Voting Rights and Civil Rights Acts in the 1960s during the Lyndon B. Johnson administration. Biden himself has stated that he was opposed to forced busing because he did not want his kids living in a racial jungle, a sentiment expressed by his wealthy Democrat supporters, especially in Delaware. He opposed a constitutional amendment banning busing entirely, as long as it was used in the South or other places not affecting himself or his voting constituents. During the first Democratic primary debate in 2019, Kamala Harris brought up Biden's harsh opposition to busing as a means of integrating schools in the 1970s. In 1976, Biden supported a measure forbidding the use of federal funds for transporting students beyond the school closest to them to enforce integration. There was backlash, and in 1977 he co-sponsored an amendment by closing the loopholes in that measure, which was signed into law by President James Carter in 1978. This would not be the first time Biden would change his official position on an important topic if it meant that he could sway votes and stay in power by pandering to those who he felt could benefit him. Biden softened on his segregation mentality, as did, to be fair, Senator Robert Byrd, who, in later life, denounced his years in the Klan and being supported in his political career by the KKK, and he apologized for his involvement. Biden, seeing the political winds, went after the Reagan administration, in particular Secretary of State George Shultz, at a Senate hearing regarding the administration's support of South Africa, which was anti-communist and dealing with communist-supported terrorists despite its continued policy of apartheid. When Biden was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee in 1987, Biden displayed his severe partisanship and was credited with Supreme Court nominee Robert Bork's failing to be confirmed. Biden, along with Senator Edward Kennedy from Massachusetts, also opposed Clarence Thomas's Supreme Court nomination, where he took some heat regarding accusations made by Anita Hill, who accused Thomas of making unwanted sexual advances. In 1987, Biden decided to run for the U.S. presidency, but dropped out of the Democratic primary after it was shown that he had plagiarized part of a speech given by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock. Biden has also made several false claims that he had earned 3 degrees in college, that he attended law school on a full scholarship, and that he graduated in the top half of his class. None of that was true. He also claimed that he had marched to the civil rights movement, which was a lie. The news services and fact-checkers blew it all in the open. And on September 23, 1987, Biden withdrew his candidacy, saying it had been overrun by the exaggerated shadow of his past mistakes. We will revisit this commonly repeated theme later as well, in Part 2. Biden had been suffering from severe headaches during his campaign, and after dropping out in 1988, it was discovered that he had 2 life-threatening brain aneurysms requiring surgery. Complications from the surgery created blood clots in his lungs, requiring another surgery. Biden was unable to work in the Senate for 7 months. Biden also served as chairman of the Committee on Foreign Relations for several years. His many foreign policy positions included advocating for strategic arms limitation with the Soviet Union, promoting peace and stability in the Balkans, expanding NATO to include former Soviet bloc nations, and opposing the First Gulf War at the beginning of Operation Desert Shield in 1990, followed by Operation Desert Storm in January 1991. Biden voted against authorization for the Gulf War in 1991, siding with 45 of the 55 Democratic senators in opposition. His concern was that the U.S. was bearing almost all the military and financial burden in the United Nations coalition force. In 1993, Biden voted for a provision that decided that homosexuality was incompatible with military life, violating the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which banned gays from serving in the armed forces. If homosexuals were discovered serving in uniform, they were liable to be court-martialed until President Bill Clinton introduced the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Subsequently, Biden voted for the Defense of Marriage Act in 1996, which prohibited the federal government from recognizing same-sex marriages, thereby barring individuals in such marriages from equal protection under federal law and allowing states to do the same. In 2015, that act was ruled unconstitutional in Obergefell v. Hodges. However, while in the Obama administration as vice president, he again changed his position, flip-flopping on that subject, and ran for president on the pro-same-sex marriage platform. As president today, in a total 180-degree turn from his previous position, he bowed to the woke collective who supported him, and now he supports not only same-sex marriage, but also gays openly serving in the military, as well as transgender persons. In addition to foreign policy, Biden was an outspoken proponent of tougher crime laws, and in 1994, during the Clinton administration, he sponsored the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act to add 100,000 police officers, a ban on assault weapons, which liberals are never able to define, and increased sentences for a host of crimes. One provision was the habitual offender argument, better known as the Three Strikes Law, which incarcerated hundreds of thousands of people, especially minorities, for even a small legal infraction. Some states already had habitual offender laws, but Biden supported increasing the role of the United States Department of Justice's anti-violence strategy. These laws require a person who was convicted of an offense and who has 1 or 2 other previous serious convictions to serve a mandatory life sentence in prison, with or without parole, depending upon the jurisdiction and if the crimes were violent in nature. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act was passed with bipartisan support in April 1994 and was originally written by Senator Joe Biden. Many liberals complain today that the law disparaged minorities, especially blacks who were serving life sentences, and Democratic states followed the administration's position and enhanced their own provisions. According to the ACLU, Following passage of the federal crime bill, incarceration rates continued to climb for an additional 14 years. First, the 1994 crime bill gave the federal stamp of approval for states to pass even more tough-on-crime laws. By 1994, all states had passed at least one mandatory minimum law, but the 1994 crime bill encouraged even more punitive laws and harsher practices on the ground, including by prosecutors and police to lock up more people and for longer periods of time. This increase in punishments also increased the growth industry of private prisons, which contracted with the various states. The companies that owned these operations sent their lobbyists to Washington, D.C. and contributed heavily to Democrats' re-election campaigns, including Biden. Biden in recent years has apologized for that law, which put so many potential Democrat voters in prison for very long sentences. But that only came after he again switched his position on crime, due to the rise of the domestic terror groups Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and the unhinged and unfounded outcry claiming systemic racism against minorities. Biden was critical of independent counsel Ken Starr's investigations during the 1990s covering the Whitewater and Monica Lewinsky scandals plaguing the Clinton administration. He voted to acquit President Clinton during the impeachment proceedings. Biden stated, "It's going to be a cold day in hell before another independent counsel would be granted similar powers." That was before he became president, where he needed his attorney general, the ineffective, corrupt, and incompetent Merrick Garland, to involve himself in appointing various independent counsels to protect him, his son Hunter, and the Biden crime family. Before the start of the Yugoslav Civil War, as tensions were increasing, Biden held a tense 3-hour meeting with Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic in April 1993. Again, to his credit, Biden worked on several versions of legislative language urging the U.S. toward greater involvement. Biden has rightly considered his role in the Balkans crisis as his proudest moment in public life regarding foreign policy. In 1999, during the Kosovo War, Biden supported the 1999 NATO bombings, and he, with Senator John McCain, co-sponsored the McCain-Biden Kosovo resolution, which called on Clinton to use all necessary force, including ground troops, to confront Milosevic over Yugoslav actions toward ethnic Albanians in Kosovo. Biden was a strong supporter of the war in Afghanistan, saying, "Whatever it takes, we should do it." As head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he said in 2002 that Iraqi President Saddam Hussein was, quote, "a threat to national security, and there was no other option than to eliminate that threat." In October 2002, as one of the most vocal hawks on Capitol Hill, he voted in favor of the authorization for use of military force against Iraq, approving the U.S. invasion. By late 2006, Biden's stance had changed, and he completely reversed his previous opinions. He opposed the troop surge of 2007, saying General David Petraeus was dead flat wrong in believing the surge could work, but Biden was wrong. In Part 2, we will dive deeper into Joseph Biden's political past, his involvement in foreign policy, as well as the many accusations of sexual advances, sexual assault, and then later we will continue with the ongoing impeachment proceeding and the continuing saga of the Biden crime family's operations. Thanks for watching today's episode of Forgotten History. If you like this episode, please consider becoming a channel member or joining our Patreon page. This would help us offset the ever-increasing cost of production. As always, please like, share, and comment, and if you have any show ideas, please contact us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time.